My son emptied my account and flew to Paris with his wife and her mother while I sat in my old armchair, watching the word zero shine back at me like a dare. If you know what that feels like, if someone you love ever took your breath and called it theirs, please like and subscribe so this story can reach somebody who needs to hear it. I am Marlene Brooks, though everyone on my block calls me Lena, and I have lived long enough to know the sound of a lie trying to pass for love. The afternoon air in South Central Los Angeles carried the motorbike rattle and a slow trumpet down the street, and my phone shook in my palm. Available balance 0, not a little, not a mistake pending reversal. 0, spelled out in silence that whistled through my ribs. Outside my window, Mr. Lionel was pushing his little cart and calling, "Fresh mango, Miss Lena," like always. I pressed my dark scarf to my wrist and waved back, a habit I keep when my hands are shaking. I turned my phone screen away from the light and opened the bank's app again. I typed my passcode with careful fingertips. I named each digit to myself as if names could make the numbers mine again. The same white page loaded, unbothered by who I have been for 68 years. Mother, church usher, housekeeper, woman who paid every bill in full and on time. Available balance 0. Down the block, Miss Hattie Cole's laugh wove through a cluster of kids chalking the sidewalk. And then my phone rang with her name. "Lena. Baby, you seen what he posted? Don't panic, I just saw it before I called." Her voice is a quilt, half warmth, half warning. "Instagram got them in Paris. Your boy, his wife, and that woman, what's her name? Patrice. They standing under that big iron tower, kissing the air like it's free." My thumb was already moving. I clicked into Aaron's page, my baby boy who grew taller than me by the time he was 15, and there it was, a story with looping music and the words, "First stop, Paris." Kiana had tagged a hotel mirror selfie, her cheek pressed to his jaw, the caption, "Trust me, we're a team." Patrice, her mother, pouted in sunglasses and lifted a flute of something I could not afford even before today. I know landmarks the way mamas know fever. I saw the river and a gray sky behind them. I do not say out loud what shook loose inside me. I have been carrying that not saying for years. "Miss Hattie," I said, swallowing, "thank you for calling me first." "Come sit with me, Lena. I got tea ready. We can—" "No, ma'am," I said. "I'm going to sit with the numbers." It is a strange thing to feel your heart crack and to choose a pencil over a prayer, but a pencil can draw a straight line between yesterday and today. I slid off my old armchair and pulled my red notebook from the drawer. That notebook began life as grocery lists and ended up a ledger of my household with tabs I labeled in neat pen: utilities, mortgage, medical, Aaron. I placed the red notebook on the dining table where sunlight chips itself into coin-sized pieces across the wood. In my other hand, I kept the scarf, wrapping and unwrapping like counting slowly through pain. I wrote the date out in full. I wrote available balance 0. I wrote Instagram, Paris, Eiffel Tower, Kiana, Patrice. The boy I carried under my ribs for 9 months had taken the breath I saved for winter. I called the bank, and a robot asked me to speak clearly after the tone. My voice sounded like I had learned English the week before. After too many menus, a person came on, a woman with a crisp cheer that never fully softened. "Mrs. Brooks, I'm so sorry you're experiencing this. I am pulling up your account now." She asked me 3 questions, then 2 more. I answered them, wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, and stared at the armchair like it had something to say. There were several large wire transfers initiated online. she said finally. "I'm looking at 3 in total. They cleared early this morning. The system shows authorized access. Do you recognize—" "Ma'am," I said, "I recognize the shape of my name. I do not recognize what someone did with it." She told me the amounts, each one a stare. I stepped down into a colder room. I asked for the dates, the times, the device description if they had it, any notes, any authorization change. She hesitated, the way people do when they think you might break. "Mrs. Brooks, the portal shows a joint access profile that, well, it's flagged as created recently, yesterday. It's listed as your name with shared authorization. I can't read more details over the phone." "Is your portal going to show me who touched my life?" I asked. "It will show profile changes, yes. I recommend you log in, print statements, and if this is elder financial abuse, you should file a complaint. We can freeze cards right now if you—" "Freeze them," I said, and I felt my chest lift. There it was, the first small step. I am not a woman who cries in public, and this was not public. It was me and a table and my red notebook and a scarf that kept my stubborn hands steady. And please note on my file that I dispute any change to access I did not initiate. By the time I hung up, the edge of the sun had slipped behind the fig tree that drops leaves like letters from an old friend. I spoke a soft thing to the room. I am not dead. Saying it out loud has a way of clearing the cobwebs. I texted Carla Benton, my neighbor who used to be an accountant before she retired and started making quilts with Miss Hattie. Carla will call a number twice, and if it doesn't answer, she walks over. She wrote back in under a minute. "Come now. Bring every paper you got." I gathered a yellow envelope from the hall closet, childhood photos worth more than money, and slid it beside the red notebook. I did not plan to show it to anyone today, but its weight steadied me. On my way out, I paused to touch the armchair. My late husband, God rest him, built the little wooden footstool under it, and I rubbed the worn corner where his hammer scar still showed. I left the porch light off. I did not want a bright witness to the lump in my throat. On the short walk next door, the block gave me its usual music. A basketball, a radio station nobody admits they still love, a siren far away. A car slowed, then rolled on. My name floated from a stoop. It is a kindness when a neighborhood knows your name. Inside Carla's apartment, the smell of cinnamon and printer ink welcomed me. She set a laptop on the table and pulled out a stack of blank paper like a magician. "Sit," she said, pushing a mug into my hand. "Tell me what he did." "He told me to trust him," I said, and then he told himself I wouldn't live to notice. Carla doesn't waste time on the first gasp. "Portal login," she said. "We're going to pull everything. Profile changes, device log, wire transfer confirmations, signature cards. If they hit it, it'll blink somewhere." She typed. "I answered security questions." She nodded. "That a scarf from your Sunday outfits? You twist it any tighter, you'll have string." "I know," I said, loosening it. "I'm keeping my hands busy so I don't call Paris." "We don't call Paris," she said. "We call the bank. Then we call someone who knows law in a way that scares people into telling the truth. But first we print. Paper doesn't behave. It just is." As the portal opened, a sigh rolled through me, long and low. The dashboard looked familiar and foreign, like a friend with a wrong smile. Carla navigated past the pretty numbers and into the bones. Profile, authorizations, devices. "Here," she said, pointing with her pen, "recent updates. There's a timestamp from yesterday, late evening." She clicked again. "New authorized user added name, Marlene Brooks. That's you, of course, but you're already... I'm already me, I said quietly. Right, so this is a duplicate of your identity to justify joint access, she said. And there's a notation for a linked phone number ending in digits that are not yours. She paused, her mouth flattening in that way she does when she is about to march into a city office with a folder and leave with a signature. Do you see the device tag? It says a location that doesn't make sense for you. Say it, I whispered. She turned the screen toward me, slow as lifting a sheet from a mirror. It says Paris. I should tell you now, I do not faint. I do not throw plates. I come from women who finish the dishes and then change their lives. I took out my red notebook and wrote the timestamp in neat, round letters. I wrote the last 4 digits of the strange number. I wrote duplicate profile made to look like me, and then underlined it twice. Carla, I said, after we finish here, I'm going to call Leonard Harris. Leo and I walked to school together in 6th grade and traded peaches at recess when the cafeteria fruit looked sad. He grew up and learned the law like a second language. He will know what to file and where. Carla's printer started its steady hum, paper sliding out like a rhythm section. She pulled a highlighter from behind her ear and smiled the kind of smile you wear to war. We're building a ledger, Lena. Every wire, every click. You hear me? I hear you, I said. And if anyone watching has been where I am, drop a line in the comments and tell me what helped you stand back up. Folks learn from each other faster than they do from strangers. As I spoke, the room steadied, the way a ship steadies when the captain shows her hands. The Instagram stories continued to light up my phone face down on the table. I did not turn it over. Somewhere across the ocean, under a lit tower and a cold river, my son was smiling the smile he wore when he was little, and I bought him brand new sneakers for the first day of school. Memory has a cruel sense of timing. I tucked the yellow envelope closer to my side, thinking of the photo where he is 4 years old and grinning through a missing tooth, clutching a paper crown he made in Sunday school. I am not a fool about symbols, but I believe in leaving breadcrumbs for the child you raise to find his way home again. I should also tell you this. Kiana once leaned into my doorway and said, "Trust me, we're a team." After asking for my signature on a refinancing document I did not sign. Patrice had wagged her fingers at my carpet and told me I ought to update my life before it updates me. And that same afternoon she called me an old-fashioned woman for putting bills in labeled folders. I kept my folders anyway. There is protection in the ordinary ways we honor ourselves. The printer stopped. Carla stacked the pages and slid the top one toward me. Her finger tapped the line where my name appeared twice, once correct, once newly added. She didn't say it, but I knew everything after this would have to be written carefully and witnessed. I lifted my pen. I'm making a vow, I told the air between us, quiet and final. I will not argue with children on the internet. I will not beg a grown man to love me. I will not chase folks across oceans. I will count, I will file, I will sign where it matters, and I will be the one to put my name back where it belongs. Carla's eyes got shiny, but she nodded. We start by opening the authorization history page and expanding the signature card. We clicked. A new window opened, gray and plain, and the digital image loaded line by line like an old photograph coming up in a dark room. My breath slowed to match the machine. There, stamped and dated from yesterday evening, was the first undeniable linkage. a co-signer box checked beside my printed name, certified by a shaky curve that was not my hand. Before the printer warmed the pages of my present, the past came walking in on quiet feet and took a seat at the table. I have spent decades keeping other people's homes in order, dusting picture frames where their babies learned to stand, straightening throw blankets that cost more than my first car, learning the difference between Polish for walnut and Polish for oak, because a woman keeps track of the woods that hold her life. I started cleaning houses up in the hills when Aaron was in first grade. The first time I brought home a paycheck with a comma in it, I bought that old armchair I still sit in and a set of brand new sheets, white like hotel beds I only ever made, never slept in. I told my boy, "This house is the one thing I can guarantee you. A roof that will be yours if you ever need it. A porch light that knows its job." The years rolled and I learned the choreography of other people's mornings. How some folks leave a cup in the sink like a question. How some leave it rinsed like an apology. In the evenings, I worked the church office 2 nights a week, counting offering envelopes with Sister May, double-checking totals with my finger, and a calculator so old the buttons stick. I kept my own red notebook for home and a smaller blue one for the church, and every number lined up like hymn verses. Aaron grew into his shoulders, into a smile that could open any door. When he was a teenager, he'd rest his head on my lap, taller than the couch could hold, and talk about making music, making moves, making a life that had more window than wall. I told him I would be his wall so he could be the window. When the time came, I sold a little piece of land my brother left me, dry dirt with a lonely orange tree out near Palmdale, and I put those dollars toward Aaron's college start. I wrote the figure across a page and flipped the page before I could do the math on how many years of mopping it had required. He went for a while, then he came back. Life is not a straight road. I have never held a child to a line. When he brought Kiana over, I hugged her like I meant it and told them both the same sentence I tell every guest. "You are welcome here as long as you can leave me the dignity I already brought with me." Kiana is a woman with sharp beauty and a voice that knows how to find the center of a room. She tugged at my curtains and called them vintage, like the word might make them new. She smiled at Aaron and told him he was destined for scale, a phrase that sounded like a ladder and a trap at the same time. In those early months, she placed a hand on my forearm and said, "Trust me, we're a team." And as she said it, I felt my attention split. Half of it watching her mouth write checks, half of it already counting my spoons. Patrice, her mother, arrived soon after, elegant in a way that made you check your own elbows for ash. She looked my carpet over and clucked the way women cluck when they do not plan to lift a finger, but still want things cleaned. "You ought to think about updating your life," she said once, her voice sweet with contempt. "It'll help Aaron breathe, if you know what I mean." I did not say that my life was updated every month when I paid the mortgage on time, that the hum of my fridge and the light over the sink are the truest luxuries I have ever bought with my own wages. Little things changed first. Aaron stopped dropping by on Sundays and started asking me to just log in and approve something he'd sent, a small vendor invoice or reimbursement. He'd say it fast, "Mom, just click the blue button, it's standard." And Kiana would chime in from the passenger seat loudspeaker, "We're just streamlining, Lena." I would ask what it was for. "Brand work," they'd say. Engagement push. I would look at the screen and see a logo I did not recognize and an amount that didn't smell like groceries. Some I rejected, gentle as possible. Some slipped past me when I was carrying 2 sacks up the porch, and my phone buzzed a reminder like a fly in my ear. I started taking pictures of receipts and putting them in the red notebook, tucked into a pocket I labeled requests. The numbers did not sing right. They hummed a tune with a missing note. One afternoon, I met them downtown for what Kiana called a strategy chat in the lobby of a high-rise where the doorman looked like he had been trained to recognize the difference between important and not. I arrived early in my church flats and a navy dress, the same one I wear to choir anniversaries. The doorman watched me as if I might ask to use a restroom that did not belong to me. When Erin and Kiana breezed in, she kissed my cheek without landing and told the doorman, "She's with us," like I had been the stray. Patrice came late, sunglasses on indoors, and asked if the coffee bar took cash from the 1980s, then pressed a bill into the tip jar as if to bless the room. We sat. They talked. Their talk had the sound of ideas that have not yet met a tax bill. "Mom," Erin said, touching my wrist, "once we get this launch, it's going to rain. Kiana's got a pipeline. We'll set your stuff on auto pay. Trust me, we're a team." I wanted to say, "Son, it has been raining my whole life and I learned to plant beans in a coffee can." But I smiled, the way mothers do when the thing you want to say would slice a rope they are still walking. On the way out, the doorman nodded at them and looked through me. Patrice lifted an eyebrow at my shoes. As the elevator doors closed, I heard her murmur, "She should enjoy herself while she can." And then a quiet chuckle. I told myself I misheard. Mothers do that too. Back home, I added a tab to the red notebook called Auto Pay, and I copied by hand every bill number I had. It soothed me to write those long numbers in neat columns, to see the shape of my months. I wrapped my dark scarf like a worry stone around my fingers and wondered when exactly a parent becomes the person their own child thinks they can rearrange. In the months before Paris, the house grew quieter. Erin stopped staying long enough to take leftovers. Kiana texted me in bursts full of brightness that never quite touched the ground. "You good, Lena? We're going to level you up soon. Let me help you rebrand this place." Patrice sent one message, a link to a kitchen renovation with an island so wide it looked like a runway. "A home should aspire," she wrote. I looked at my laminate counters and saw cinnamon sugar in the seams from last week and thought, my home aspires to be kind. Then small alarms rang that only a woman who keeps ledgers hears. A water bill came due with a late fee stamped in red, though I knew I had paid it 2 days early. A pharmacy report said my copay card failed once and worked twice, like a loose battery. The church's blue notebook balanced more slowly. One offering envelope had its seal peeled and resealed. When I asked Erin, he laughed softly and kissed my temple. "Mom, your systems are quaint. We're going to digitize you. It's easier this way. You don't have to carry it all." "I do not mind carrying," I said. "I mind things getting lighter because someone else put them down without asking me." Miss Hattie, who has known my kitchen longer than any cupboard, started catching me staring at a single page for too long. "Lena," she said one evening, standing at my sink with her hands in my dishwater like she paid the water bill herself, "keep your eyes open around women who enjoy your son like a parade. There's always a broom crew behind a parade. You hear me?" Somebody's sweeping up the candy papers. On Sundays, I wore my dark scarf to service and listened to the sermon with my jaw unclenched. After church, I took my tithe in an envelope to the office, and Sister May and I counted as always. And I love the way money looks when it knows exactly where it is going. It is a kind of worship to tell a dollar what its job is, out loud. When the day of the zero arrived, when Paris posted itself across my son's face like a new name, I began to pull at threads that had been waiting to be pulled. Carla and I printed the transfers, circled the times, wrote down device tags. She showed me how to click the profile changes link that most folks never notice. Every change leaves a scuff, she said. We're going to collect scuffs. We found notations that hinted at a second phone number, at a browser I do not use, at a notification email I had never seen. We printed those too and slid them into a thin manila folder that started to look like a spine. As we worked, another stack of papers waited under my elbow, the unglamorous mail every house produces like breadcrumbs. I had set it aside in my rush, but after we finished the first pass on the portal, I pulled it toward me. There was a property tax reminder on time as always, a coupon envelope with promises for gutters I do not have, and a glossy brochure from an estate planning service, the kind with smiling elders who wear pastel sweaters and grip mugs as if happiness were a handle. I went to toss it and then paused. Somebody had peeled the seal once already and stuck it back. Carla raised an eyebrow. Open that. Inside was a letter with my name misspelled, Marlene, with an invitation to review your existing draft through a client portal. My stomach cooled. There was a line at the bottom with a generic login URL and a client number. Did you ever start a will with these people? Carla asked. I write my wishes on paper and I tell them to people who love me, I said. That's been enough up to now. I turned the letter over. A sticky note clung to the back, the kind you buy in a neon pack, and across it in looping handwriting were the words, Need final signature, K. Carla and I looked at each other. We did not need to say the name. We sat down at her laptop again, slow and deliberate. We're not clicking links, she said. We're going to the company name directly. She typed the address by hand into the bar, not trusting the printed short path, and found the login page. She selected, I forgot my ID, entered my email address, and a minute later, my phone buzzed with a code. Good, she said. If someone set up an account with your name, we'll walk into it by the front door. We entered the code. The portal opened onto a clean dashboard with a smiling stock photo, and there it was. Documents in progress. Last will and testament of Marlene E. Brooks, draft. The date on the draft was last week. The status line said, awaiting client review. Carla printed the index screen before we clicked anything else. Screenshots, prints, then we look. I breathed a slow prayer that was mostly air and a little fire. We opened the draft. Words assembled themselves into a shape I recognized only from television shows where families stop speaking in a lawyer's office. The first page spelled my name correctly. The second page listed a bequest structure that did not sound like my mouth. House and residual savings to a primary beneficiary, Aaron Malik Brooks. There was a second line about any investment accounts to be consolidated into a trust for the benefit of the same. My breath made a small sound without my permission. I scrolled. The witness section was blank. The signature line had a slanted scrawl already placed in pale gray, like a suggestion of a future. My name, but looser, younger, a hand that did not remember the years I've lived. They practiced, Carla whispered, her voice flat and furious. Or they uploaded a sample. The draft included language I would never choose for myself. Words about expedition of probate, about streamlined transfer, about caretaking decisions delegated, with no mention of Miss Hattie, no provision for the church scholarship fund I have been quietly feeding from my side money for years, no clause about my neighbor kids keeping my bookcase. I clicked the History tab on instinct. The portal, bless its bland little heart, had recorded every touch. The original template had been started from a device tagged to an IP address that geolocated to my street, but a different number than mine. 2 days later, an advisor account had accessed it and toggled beneficiary language. Yesterday afternoon, someone with a cookie labeled KM had previewed the signing flow. I sat back, and the chair complained like it understood. Carla placed her hand over mine, stilling the scarf I had half wrapped around my knuckles. "Lena," she said, "I want you to look at me and not at that screen. There is a reason you have kept everything in folders for as long as you have. It wasn't quaint. It was a fence. We're going to use it." I nodded. There is a special kind of quiet a woman must enter when she understands that love has been repurposed into leverage. In that quiet, you hear all the sermons you've ever taken notes on, and also the sound of your own mother's apron as she wiped her hands and then her eyes. I told Carla I needed a minute to stand at the window. Outside, the block carried on, stubborn with life. 2 boys argued about a call in a game that meant everything right now and nothing tomorrow. Mr. Lionel laughed at something a little girl said that must have been perfect. Miss Hattie sat on her stoop and nodded at passing time like it owed her money. I turned back to the table and pulled the yellow envelope from my bag. I slid out a photograph, Aaron at 4, missing a tooth, wearing a paper crown from Sunday school with the word kind written in green marker. I set it beside the draft that tried to make me a signature only. I have known for a while that Kiana likes plans that leave handprints on other people's lives. I have seen the way Patrice enjoys a plot as long as she does not have to clean after it. A mother learns the grammar of risk by heart. But seeing my name bent like this strapped the knowledge to bone. "If any of this sounds familiar to you," I said softly to no one and to everyone, "drop a comment so another woman can see she's not the only one. And if you are the woman doing this to somebody's mama, stop while you can still recognize your own reflection." I wiped the corner of my eye with the heel of my palm and squared the stack of papers. "We're not going to yell," I told Carla. "We're going to act." She smiled a soldier's smile. "Step 1, we export everything we can from this portal. Step 2, we put it next to the bank records. Step 3, tomorrow morning we take a measured walk to see Leonard Harris." "Tonight," I said. "We copy Leo on an email with attachments so there's a timestamp outside our control. Tonight we name it and tomorrow we file it. I am done being polite with my own survival." Carla nodded. "Amen." We made PDFs of the draft, the index, the history log. We printed and we scanned back to make sure nothing got lost in the middle. We saved them to a fresh thumb drive Carla keeps for church bake sale spreadsheets. She wrote with a Sharpie, in her neat block letters, "Lena, Evidence A." We opened my email, built a subject line that would make a tired lawyer sit up: Elder Financial Abuse, Forgery, Immediate Action Request, and attached every file we had. I typed a short note to Leo. "Please confirm receipt. I will call at 8 in the morning. We will need emergency measures." I did not add the sentence that burned in my throat. I raised a man who does not recognize the house that raised him, because the law cannot hold that kind of heat. Before I hit send, Carla touched my wrist. "You ready?" "I have been getting ready my whole life," I said, and pressed the key. The whoosh of the email leaving sounded like a valve opening. We exhaled together. Carla stood, stretched her back, and reached for my red notebook. "Write the time," she said. "Write the list of attachments. Write who we copied. One day you or somebody else is going to need to prove you did this exactly right." I wrote, my pen steady, the scarf slack against my palm. When I finished, I closed the notebook and felt the weight of it like a small shield. "Tomorrow," I said, more to the room than to Carla, "I am going to walk into somebody's office with this shield and ask the law to do what love refused to." The printer blinked one last time and spit out a thin page we had missed, an auto-generated cover sheet from the estate portal that we had not asked for, addressed to Marlene E. Brooks, with a footer that read, "If you did not authorize this draft, contact support immediately." At the very bottom, in tiny font, was the advisor's name, initialed only CM, and a callback number that started with a city code I knew by memory because I have mailed cards there for funerals. Carla and I looked at each other, the same thought stepping into the room uninvited. Sometimes the initials tell you everything you need to know. I lifted the page to the lamp and my breath fogged the corner. The advisor's email address, faint in the footer, contained a last name spelled out in full, Mercer. And that is when my eyes slid to the draft will again and caught a buried clause that made my ribs go cold. In the event of the testator's incapacitation or death within 6 months, this instrument shall be executed without contest. I felt something old and strong stand up inside me. I set the page down, folded my scarf in half like a bandage, and said the line out loud so the room could hear it choose me. Enough. Then I clicked to the last page of the document where my name sat pale and waiting, and watched as a signature preview flickered, my name already scrawled by a hand that was not mine. And right there, under that theft in progress, sat the line that would give my house and my savings to Aaron as if I were already gone. The next morning, South Central woke like it always does, with a bark, a bus brake hiss, and the smell of toast sneaking through thin walls. I sat at my kitchen table in my old robe, the red notebook open to the page where I had written, "Enough." The scarf lay across my shoulders now, more like armor than comfort. Carla had already texted twice before the coffee finished dripping. "You ready?" "Leo's expecting us at 9. I was ready. Ready in the way people are when they've run out of ways to pretend otherwise. I slid the notebook and the folder marked Evidence A into my worn purse and tucked the yellow envelope beside them, like a witness to its own history. Before I locked the door, I paused and touched the armchair one more time, the same one that had heard my first laugh after Aaron was born, my first sigh when my husband died. "Keep watch," I whispered to it, and the room held its breath as I left. Leo's office sits over a barber shop that's been there longer than rent control. His name is painted in gold on the frosted window, L. Harris, attorney at law, Retiti, consulting by appointment. Retired or not, he still smells like courtroom wood polish and principle. When Carla and I climbed the narrow stairs, he was already waiting by the door with a manila folder tucked under his arm. "Lena Brooks," he said, shaking his head the way old friends do when the years collapse between them. If I had known it'd take a crisis to get you back in here, I'd have sent trouble sooner." His smile softened. "Come sit down, both of you." We took the 2 chairs facing his desk. The blinds cut the sunlight into even bars across the papers, like a ledger. He gestured to the stack in Carla's hands. "Let me guess, that's your homework." I slid the folder forward. "Evidence A," I said. "Bank transfers, forged signature, and a will drafted by somebody who hopes I won't live long enough to object." Leo whistled low, opened the first page, and ran his finger down the transaction log. "They use the portal. The timestamps will match your bank's server. You did right printing these. This isn't just theft, it's forgery, digital impersonation, and elder financial abuse rolled together. You caught it early enough that some of it might be traceable." "I don't want traceable," I said quietly. "I want accountable." Carla nodded beside me. "We froze her cards last night. The bank's note confirms it. What's next?" Leo reached into his drawer and pulled out a form, long, gray, official-looking. "This," he said, "is the Elder Financial Abuse Complaint under California Welfare and Institutions Code. We'll attach your evidence and a sworn statement. Once it's filed, the state's Protective Services Unit can trigger an emergency freeze under Section 15,600 point something. It's designed for exactly this scenario. We'll notarize it, fax it to the district office, and hand-deliver a copy to the bank's legal department." I stared at the paper, all lines and checkboxes. "It feels strange to see your pain in bureaucratic font," I said. He smiled gently. "Paperwork is how the powerless talk to power, Lena. Let's make sure you speak loud." We spent the next 2 hours building the record. I read my statement aloud while Carla double-checked the exhibits. I wrote it plain, the way truth sounds before it gets edited. My name is Marlene Lena Brooks. On the morning of August 14th, I discovered that my personal savings account had been emptied through unauthorized online wire transfers. The joint access profile was fraudulently created under my name without consent. I believe my son, Aaron Malik Brooks, and his wife, Kiana Mercer, to be responsible for the forgery and theft. Leo had us sign, date, and initial each page. Then he stood, rolled down his sleeves, and took the folder in both hands. "I'll file this myself. Carla, you go with her to the notary across the street. Make copies for your own binder, Lena. Keep the red notebook locked up. We'll meet again this afternoon." As we stepped outside, the air felt brighter. The kind of brightness that stings before it heals. Carla hugged me at the corner and went to run her errands. I walked a few blocks to the clinic on Florence Avenue because my breath had been short all week. It felt like I'd been carrying a box full of wet clothes inside my chest. The clinic smelled of disinfectant and lavender from an air freshener someone cared enough to plug in. Dr. Samuel Whitaker had been my internist for years, a soft-spoken man with silver temples and a habit of pausing before he says anything serious. "Mrs. Brooks," he said, closing the door behind him, "I got your labs. Sit down, please." His tone was the kind doctors use when they wish they were wrong. I sat, gripping the scarf ends in my lap. He opened a file, glanced once at the numbers, then at me. "Your blood counts have dropped further since last month. The bone marrow biopsy we ran confirms what we suspected. You have acute myeloid leukemia. It's progressed more quickly than we hoped." I blinked once, twice. "So it's not the cleaning fumes or the fatigue from chasing papers?" He shook his head. "No, ma'am. It's the blood itself." He hesitated before adding, Without aggressive treatment, chemotherapy, transfusions, you might have 6 months, maybe a bit more. 6 months. The words hung there, neither cruel nor kind, just final, like a door closing softly on a familiar room. I looked at the ceiling tile, the same one I'd stared at last time when he told me my blood pressure was too high, and thought how strange it was that ceilings never change, even when lives do. "I see," I said at last, "if I did the treatment." "It could buy time," he said, "but it's grueling, and your counts are low already. It's not an easy road." I laughed, a small sound that surprised us both. "Doctor, nothing about my life's been easy, but at least it's been mine. I don't plan to spend what's left of it hooked up to strangers calling me brave." He frowned gently. "There's hospice, palliative options." "I know," I interrupted softly, "and I'll choose them when it's time. Right now, I've got work to do." He nodded, understanding that there are kinds of strength the chart doesn't measure. He scribbled prescriptions for comfort meds, told me to call if I changed my mind, and shook my hand as if he were passing me something heavier than paper. Outside, the sun was too bright for the news I carried. I walked slow toward the bus stop, letting the light hit my eyelids until red spots danced behind them. I thought of Aaron as a baby, how he'd grab my finger with both his hands like he was claiming a promise. Somewhere across the ocean, that same hand had drawn a fake version of mine. The thought should have broken me. Instead, it steadied me. When I got home, Miss Hattie was sitting on my porch with a bag of peaches, and that look she gets when she knows more than she's saying. "Girl, you look like you've been through 2 kinds of storms," she said. "You eat something yet?" I smiled. "Not yet, but I filed something." "That better feed your soul then," she said, passing me a peach. We sat there, 2 old women in lawn chairs watching the street stretch itself. I told her about Leo, the paperwork, the doctor. She listened without interrupting, peeling her peach with slow fingers. 6 months, she repeated softly. "That's enough time to do something that lasts longer." I nodded. "That's the plan." That night, I sat again at the dining table with my red notebook. I wrote the word diagnosis on a fresh page, underlined it once, and listed what I wanted done before I left this world. Close all false accounts. Reclaim property title. Protect the house. Leave truth on paper for Aaron. Die standing, not begging. I taped the doctor's note to the inside cover, right next to the first entry from decades ago, the one that said grocery money, February 1979, $5 short. Life circles itself sometimes, but I've learned to write the next line anyway. Before bed, I called Leo. "Did you get everything filed?" "Yes," he said. "Complaint stamped and accepted. I spoke to a contact at the county recorder's office. There's been an attempt to co-register your property, likely linked to that forged will. It failed because the secondary party used a digital signature that didn't match your recorded ID, but it means they tried." "They always try," I said. "I'm escalating," he continued. "I'm looping in an IRS criminal investigation contact, Agent Cole Matthews. He can place a provisional flag on any outgoing funds associated with your Social Security number or connected joint accounts. If your son or his wife touch another dollar of yours, it'll light up like Christmas." I exhaled slowly. That's what I needed to hear. "Stay strong, Lena. We're just getting started." When we hung up, I realized how quiet the house was. The kind of quiet that listens back. I walked to the window, looked out at the fig tree shedding another leaf, and thought of Paris, the city where my boy was learning how expensive freedom can be when it isn't yours. I made myself tea and carried it to the porch. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification. Bank transfer confirmation. Joint account alert. I frowned. The message header showed a destination I didn't recognize, but the routing location stopped my heart for half a beat. France. Under it, a line in small print read, "Processed under name, Marlene E. Brooks, cosigner." I touched the screen once, twice, staring at that lie, pretending to be me. Somewhere under foreign lights, my name was moving money I no longer owned. And that was the moment I knew. My fight had crossed an ocean. I have learned that revenge, when it's righteous, doesn't burn. It cools. It settles into the bones like winter air, patient and clear. In the days after that bank notification from France, I moved like someone measuring her last stretch of road. My body ached from the cancer, but my mind was sharper than it had been in years. Grief will cloud you. Purpose will scrape that glass clean. Leo called early one morning, his voice half static, half urgency. Lena, Agent Matthews ran the cross-border trace. We caught 3 transactions routed through a holding company in Luxembourg with a satellite account in France. The name matches an account opened by an A.M. Brooks. That's your son. But the good news, bank compliance in France just confirmed the freeze. I sat down at my table, the red notebook open to a page titled Fraud Trail, Europe. "So they're cornered," I said. "They don't know it yet," he replied. "Agent Matthews is coordinating with the embassy. Any U.S. citizen associated with those accounts will trigger an automatic alert if they present identification in France. You've built quite a paper net." "Paper's patient," I said. "It waits for people to hang themselves." He chuckled softly. "I've missed your way of putting things. There's one more step, though. The embassy may need you as a witness to confirm identity and signature mismatches. It would mean travel." "Then I'll travel," I said, before he could warn me about the strain. "I'm not dying in a house full of unanswered questions." After we hung up, I wrapped my scarf and went for a walk down the block. Mr. Lionel called out from his cart, "You smiling, Miss Lena?" I nodded. "First time in a while," I said. "Keep it up then," he replied. "You wear it good." There's a strange grace in knowing your days are numbered. You stop wasting them on anything less than truth. Across the ocean, truth was cracking its first shell. In a Paris hotel room with pale wallpaper and too much perfume in the air, Kiana sat cross-legged on the bed, laptop open, her tone sugar and vinegar all at once. "Patrice, listen. If we move the rest to the secondary account tonight, the delay in verification will buy us at least 48 hours before they realize." Patrice was painting her nails by the window, barely listening. "And after that?" "After that, we say Aaron panicked. We tell him we'll meet him in Spain, then we don't." Patrice looked over her glasses. "You plan to leave him?" Kiana smirked. "He's dead weight now. The system froze half the funds already. If he wasn't so slow, we'd be done. She's gonna die soon anyway. What's the harm?" Patrice gave a low, humorless laugh. "You talk like your conscience is on holiday." "It is," Kiana said, "in Paris." They both laughed, but Aaron, sitting near the minibar, didn't. His hands trembled as he scrolled through the banking app, watching the balances flicker from pending to unavailable. The pit of his stomach tightened with the quiet sound of defeat. "Babe, It says temporary restriction again, he murmured. Kiana didn't even look up. It's nothing. Trust me, we're a team. He nodded, but something in his eyes had changed. There's a point when manipulation stops sounding like love and starts sounding like paperwork waiting to bury you. He reached for his wallet, slid out a card, and tried the ATM downstairs. The screen blinked. Transaction declined. Please contact your bank. That's how the first wall fell, one beep at a time. Meanwhile, Leo and I were building walls of our own, legal ones. He came by my house with 2 folders and a grin that looked like victory learning to walk. Agent Matthews sent over confirmation, he said. The freeze is official. You're now flagged under a protective elder account, which means no co-signature, no power of attorney changes, and no transfers without dual authentication directly through me. You've effectively sealed the vault. I reached for the paper and read the heading aloud. U.S. Department of the Treasury, Elder Account Protection Protocol. It sounded grand enough to make me laugh. All this because a mama decided to balance her checkbook. He chuckled. Because a mama refused to die quietly. We sat in my living room, the air heavy with the hum of the ceiling fan. Miss Hattie stopped by with peach cobbler and nosy affection. You two look like you just buried the devil, she said, setting the pan on my table. Working on it, Leo said, smiling. Hattie eyed me. You all right, baby? I hesitated. Tired but steady. Doctor says I've got months, maybe less. Her lips tightened, but her eyes stayed kind. Then let's make every one of them count. I'll bring cobbler till the last one. After she left, I opened the red notebook and began adding fresh pages labeled Contacts, Paris and Embassy Coordination. Leo read over my shoulder. Agent Matthews is looping in a consular officer. They'll call when Aaron shows his passport. That's when the real reckoning begins. I wrote one more line beneath the heading. I will look him in the eye when he learns what he did to me. My hand didn't shake that time. Days passed. The leukemia made mornings slow and nights longer. Still, I woke each day with purpose. Carla helped me organize notarized copies for my travel folder. You're really going? She asked. Yes, I said. If the law wants a signature, they'll get mine, alive. Across the sea, Paris was unraveling for my son. The hotel had started holding their keycard deposits because of unverified payments. Kiana was pacing, Patrice arguing with the concierge in rapid-fire indignation. Aaron sat near the window, scrolling through messages from the bank that made no sense. Account review in process. Temporary access restricted. Please contact U.S. support. He rubbed his temples, confusion and guilt warring in his chest. Did you use my mother's info to open that joint profile? He asked suddenly, voice trembling. Kiana froze. What kind of question is that? The kind that comes after you ruin somebody's life, he said. She shot him a cold look. We did this for us, Aaron, for the future, for stability. He almost laughed. You mean for Paris? Patrice scoffed. Don't start moralizing now, baby. You cashed the tickets, didn't you? You took the plane. Aaron turned away. I thought we were fixing things, not stealing from her. Kiana's jaw tightened. You're welcome to take that high ground when you can afford the view. She stormed into the hallway, her heels hitting the floor like punctuation marks. Patrice followed, muttering something about children and consequences. Aaron stayed behind, staring at his reflection in the window until it blurred with the city lights. Back home, Leo's phone buzzed with a message. He read it, smiled faintly, and looked at me. Embassy alert triggered. They've been flagged. I leaned back in my armchair. So it begins. We spent that evening drafting correspondence for the consular officer, official identification, notarized affidavits, and confirmation of forged signatures. Leo slid them into a blue envelope and handed it to me. If you're set on going, this will get you through embassy security. I'm set, I said. My doctor says I shouldn't travel, but my spirit says otherwise. Spirit wins, he replied. The next morning, I bought a one-way ticket to Paris using the last untouched savings in my separate credit union account. I packed light. My passport, the red notebook, the yellow envelope, and my scarf. Before I left, Miss Hattie hugged me long enough to break the silence. "Don't you go dying over there without saying what needs saying first," she said. "God don't like half-finished stories." "I'll finish it," I promised. On the flight, the clouds looked like folded pages, endless and white. I pressed my palm to the window and whispered, "Hold still, Lena. You've waited your whole life to speak for yourself." When we landed, Paris smelled like rain and arrogance. The taxi rolled past iron balconies and cafes, the same ones from Aaron's photos. I checked into a small hotel across from the consulate and called Leo. "I'm here," I said. "Good," he replied. "They'll reach out soon. Stay ready." Across the city, in that high-end hotel now echoing with panic, Aaron's phone buzzed with a new email. Notice of required appearance, U.S. Embassy, Paris. Please report with identification regarding joint account verification. Kiana read over his shoulder, her face draining of color. "What's this?" she whispered. "Some kind of bank verification thing," he said, voice thin. "That's not possible," she snapped. "We used a clean channel." Patrice sighed, lighting a cigarette near the window despite the no-smoking sign. "Clean's a funny word," she said. "Looks like the lady back home's not as dead as you thought." Aaron looked at them both, realization dawning like a bruise. "You told me she agreed," he said slowly. "You said she was fine." Kiana's lips tightened. "I said she was going to die soon anyway. I never said she agreed." He stared at her as if seeing her for the first time. "And what am I to you?" She didn't answer. Downstairs, he tried his card again, another decline. The ATM spat out a paper slip that read, "Funds frozen. Contact consular services." He stood there, numb, the city's beauty mocking him from the glass doors. At that same hour, half a world away, I sat at my table in a Paris hotel, too modest for brochures. I laid the red notebook open beside the yellow envelope and checked the flight itinerary that Leo had emailed earlier. Return optional, witness confirmation required. I read it twice, then closed the notebook and said to the quiet room, "Then it's time." And for the first time in months, I felt the ground of this earth steady under my feet. When the embassy called, the morning light in Paris was thin and cold, the kind that paints every window with restraint. The consular officer's voice was measured but kind. "Mrs. Brooks, we've received the documentation from Mr. Harris and Agent Matthews. We'll need you to appear today at noon for verification and witness statement. The other parties have also been summoned." "The other parties," I repeated. The words sounded surgical. "Yes, ma'am, Mr. Aaron Brooks, Mrs. Kiana Mercer, and Ms. Patrice Mercer. Please bring your identification, any relevant correspondence, and, if possible, patience." I smiled. I have just enough of all three. When I hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and smoothed the red notebook open on my lap. The pages were dense with my handwriting. Dates, transactions, notes about conversations, a few prayers between the lines. I slipped the yellow envelope on top, sealing the edges with the care you give to something that must outlive you. Inside were the childhood photo of Aaron with his paper crown and a handwritten letter that began with one sentence: "You were my beginning, and I wanted to be your safety." I wrapped my scarf twice around my neck, it had become my flag, and took a slow breath. The city outside my window buzzed with impatience. Scooters whining like mosquitoes, tourists crossing streets with cameras instead of eyes. I walked out quietly, hailed a cab, and let Paris pass me by like a film I was no longer a part of. The U.S. Embassy sat behind tall gates and iron fences, guarded by men with clipped manners. Inside, the waiting area smelled faintly of disinfectant and paperwork. The consular officer who greeted me was a slim man with kind eyes that had seen too many confessions. His badge read, Mr. D. Cole, and when he shook my hand, he said, "I've read your file, Mrs. Brooks. You're remarkably thorough." "I used to balance the books for a church," I said. "God appreciates accuracy." He smiled. "So do we." He led me into a small room with a polished table, 2 chairs on one side and 3 on the other, the U.S. seal glinting on the wall behind him. "They'll be brought in shortly," he said. "You can choose to speak or stay silent. Either way, your statement is already powerful." I placed the red notebook in front of me. "I'll speak." Minutes later, the door opened and the past walked in on shaking legs. Aaron entered first, pale and thinner than I remembered, his eyes rimmed red. Kiana followed, still dressed for the wrong kind of meeting, heels too high, sunglasses perched on her head like a crown. Patrice came last, her perfume a small weapon in itself. The consular officer motioned for them to sit. "We're here to verify identity and confirm signatures linked to international transfers and estate documentation. Each of you will have a chance to speak." He opened a folder. "Mrs. Brooks, your evidence has been reviewed and corroborated by the IRS Criminal Investigation Division." He paused. "The funds remain frozen pending your separation consent." Kiana scoffed. "Separation? We didn't come here for a divorce hearing." The officer's tone cooled a few degrees. "Ma'am, we're not talking about marriage. We're talking about joint accounts and financial impersonation." Aaron's gaze flickered toward me, desperate, small. "Mom," he said softly. I didn't mean—" I lifted a hand. "We'll get to meaning later." Kiana leaned forward, sharp-edged. "She's exaggerating. She gave him access. She signed the documents. We're a team." That line hit me like a ghost. Trust me, we're a team. I had heard it too many times to mistake its shape. I met her eyes and said evenly, "Yes, I've heard that before." The officer turned a page, reading from the file. "Per our investigation, Mrs. Brooks's digital signature was forged using a stylus device connected to a Paris IP address. The accompanying authentication text message went to a number registered to you, Mrs. Mercer." The room went still. Even Patrice's hands froze mid-adjustment of her bracelet. "That's absurd," Kiana snapped. "We were all together that night. Aaron must have—" Aaron cut her off, voice breaking. "Don't!" He covered his face. "Just stop." Patrice sighed, leaning back. "This is all unnecessary drama. The woman's elderly, sick." "She's standing right here," I said. My voice was quiet, but it made the walls listen. "And she's not too sick to remember who raised her or who stole from her." The officer cleared his throat. "Let's proceed with verification. Mr. Brooks, Please confirm this is your mother." Aaron nodded. His jaw trembled. "And this is your signature?" The officer slid a paper across the table, the forged authorization. Aaron stared at it as though it were an old photograph he no longer recognized. "No," he whispered. "That's not hers. That's not—" "Please sign here, below this line, to separate your name from all joint financial authorizations." He picked up the pen, his hand shaking. Kiana's eyes widened. "Don't sign anything, they'll lock you out." He looked at me. For a long time, no one breathed. I didn't say a word. The silence made the choice clear. Finally, he pressed the pen down and signed. Kiana stood abruptly. "I'm not doing this," she hissed. "This whole thing is a setup." Patrice gathered her purse. "I told you this trip was cursed." The consular officer raised a hand. "Ladies, your involvement is under separate review. You're free to leave after confirming your own statements." Kiana glared at me one last time. "You think you've won? She's dying anyway." I smiled, faint but steady. "Maybe, but not before teaching you that dignity has better lawyers." They stormed out, heels clicking across the tile like insults that didn't land. The door shut behind them, and the air felt lighter. The officer looked at me. "Would you like to make a formal statement for the record?" "Yes," I said. "For the record, I forgive my son. But forgiveness doesn't cancel truth." He nodded to the clerk in the corner. "Recording on." I folded my hands on the red notebook. My voice came out clear, almost calm. "My name is Marlene Lena Brooks. I am 68 years old. I have spent my life cleaning other people's homes, saving every dollar, believing that trust is a form of love. My son forgot that love has receipts. Today, I am not here for revenge. I am here for balance. Every woman who has ever been told she's too old, too tired, or too close to the end to fight, let her see this moment. Let her know she can still stand up and claim her name." There was a pause, the kind that lasts longer than sound. The clerk blinked back tears. Somewhere behind us, a tourist raised a phone and quietly pressed record. I didn't stop them. Some truths deserve to travel. When the consular officer read the final clause, separation of accounts acknowledged and verified by the United States Consular Authority, I felt my shoulders release decades of weight. He handed me the pen. I signed my real name, my real hand, one last time. Aaron looked up at me, tears breaking his voice. "Mom, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to," I told him. "Just do better with the rest of your time than I did with mine." He reached across the table, but I didn't take his hand. Instead, I slid the yellow envelope toward him. "This is yours. Don't open it here. Open it when the noise quiets down." The officer gathered the documents and stood. "That concludes the verification." As we rose, I felt the room's hum shift. The clerk whispered, "Ma'am, people outside. They're watching." Through the glass wall, a small group had gathered, tourists and staff alike murmuring. Someone must have already uploaded the clip. Phones were glowing like candles. I walked past them with my head high, scarf trailing like a banner. Dignity has a sound. It's the silence after you stop explaining yourself. On the embassy steps, the Paris light had turned gold. Kiana and Patrice were nowhere to be seen. Aaron stood a few yards away, holding the yellow envelope like something fragile and alive. He looked small against the embassy's stone facade. I turned to the consular officer beside me. Now he has to read it. And I began my slow walk down the steps, each one measured, each one mine. Airports have a sound, the hollow ache of things ending. Aaron stood under the fluorescent glare of the Paris departure gate, a single suitcase at his feet and the yellow envelope in his lap. His phone was silent, his bank app frozen. Kiana and Patrice had disappeared 2 days earlier, leaving nothing but a note scrawled on hotel stationery. It's been real. He didn't chase them. Some losses explain themselves. He slid a thumb beneath the envelope's flap, the paper soft from being handled too many times. Inside was a folded letter, written in careful loops that were unmistakably mine. "Aaron," it began, "I don't want you to apologize. I want you to understand. Love isn't a debit you can withdraw until it empties. It's a balance you maintain with respect and memory. You took everything but left me the chance to show you who you came from. I won't use my last breath to curse you. I'll use it to forgive you, but forgiveness is not a door you walk through without work. It's a hammer. Pick it up. Build yourself back." Tucked inside the letter was the childhood photo, the paper crown, the toothless grin, the boy he used to be. He pressed it against his chest, boarding pass trembling in his hand. Back in Los Angeles, the summer heat was already softening into autumn when the video hit the internet. Someone had uploaded the embassy clip under the title, "Elderly Woman Confronts Son at Embassy with Grace." Within a week, it had millions of views. Folks from as far as Ghana and Detroit left comments. Women who said they'd been stolen from, men who said they'd been forgiven when they didn't deserve it. Carla showed me the video once on her phone, tears glinting. "You're viral, Lena," she said. "You're what they call iconic." I just laughed softly. At my age, iconic just means you lived long enough to be understood. Miss Hattie refused to let me hide. "You walking proof that quiet folks can shake the earth," she told me, spooning soup into my hands. I didn't argue. I didn't have the strength. The cancer had settled deeper now. Stares took more from me than they gave, but I still kept the red notebook close, adding final notes each morning before the fatigue rolled in. Leo called often. "Agent Matthews says your case led to a new freeze program. They're naming it after you, the Brooks Clause. Protects elderly account holders from online forgery." "Well," I said, "I suppose that's one way to make a legacy." He chuckled. "It's more than most get." Days blurred into soft light. The neighborhood started checking in. The kids dropping flowers, Mr. Lionel waving from his juice cart, Carla sitting on my porch with her crossword puzzles. Every visitor left something small, cookies, cards, prayer cloths. I left something too, a sense of peace in the corners of my house. Then one morning I found a small white box on my porch. Inside were 2 glazed donuts, still warm. No note, no name. The next day, another box, and again the day after that with a single napkin folded neatly inside. Carla saw them and smiled. "You think—" "I know," I said. "Some things don't need signatures." He never knocked. He never called. Just left those quiet offerings before sunrise. Sometimes I caught a glimpse of him down the street, a man walking with his shoulders heavy, hat low. The neighbors said nothing. They just let him pass. That was enough. My body grew weaker by the week, but my mind stayed sharp. I wrote letters for the church, made sure my bills were settled, my will updated properly this time, filed, notarized, and honest. In the evenings, I'd sit by the window in my old armchair, the scarf draped over my lap, and watch the street breathe. Children's laughter, the rattle of grocery carts, the hum of life going on. It was all the music I needed. One afternoon, Miss Hattie came by and found me nodding off at the table. "You look ready for a long nap, Lena." "I'm getting there," I said, "but I've got one more thing to finish." I opened the red notebook to its final page. At the top I wrote, "For Aaron." Then I folded a fresh letter inside. "Son, I don't expect you to carry my shame, only your own lessons. This house will outlive us both, but make it a home again. Plant something out front, something that grows slow and stubborn like we are. When people ask, tell them your mother kept her word. She didn't die bitter. She died balanced." I sealed it in an envelope and tied it to the notebook with a strip of my scarf, knotted twice the way my grandmother taught me. I placed them on the table beside a vase of fading sunflowers. The house was dim but kind. The air smelled like cinnamon and dust. Outside, the streetlights blinked on. I thought about all the hands that had helped me. Carla's steady fingers on the keyboard, Leo's firm advice, Hattie's laughter, even Agent Matthews sending emails with government headers that felt like protection. A village of quiet defenders. When the clock ticked past midnight, I stood for the last time, steadying myself on the armchair. "Tomorrow he'll come," I whispered, "and I'll be ready." I sat back down, pulled the scarf over my shoulders, and let my head rest against the cushion. The red notebook waited on the table, glowing faintly in the lamp's light, like a lantern left for someone lost but on their way home. Morning came to South Central the way it always does. Slow, stubborn, and honest. The street hummed with its small rituals. Mr. Lionel setting up his juice cart, Hattie sweeping her porch, buses groaning at corners that never change. But one porch stayed still. The curtains didn't move, and the front light, the one that had always been left on, had burned out sometime in the night. Aaron stood at the gate holding a paper bag of donuts, his 5th morning in a row. He hadn't slept since the plane touched down 2 days earlier. The embassy hearing, the video, the flight home, all of it felt like another life pressed between 2 heavy covers. His mother's voice still echoed in his head. "You can still stand up and claim your name." He opened the gate. The hinges squealed like they used to when he was little. The door was unlocked. Inside, the house smelled faintly of cinnamon, paper, and the lavender soap she favored. The morning light fell across the living room, landing on the old armchair where she always sat. She was there, still, serene, wrapped in her dark scarf. Her hands rested softly on her lap, the red notebook tied with a strip of fabric beside her, the letter sealed on top. There was no fear in her face, only rest. He sank to his knees and wept, not loud, just the kind of crying that pulls air out of your chest until all that's left is apology. When the tears slowed, he noticed the note, in her familiar handwriting, "For Aaron." He broke the seal with shaking hands. "Son," it began, "by the time you read this, I'll be somewhere quiet. Don't waste breath on guilt. It never built a thing worth keeping. I forgive you because holding anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. You don't deserve forgiveness. You grow into it. This house is yours, but treat it like a guest. Keep it clean, keep it kind, and never lock the porch light. Somebody lost might need it someday. In the red notebook, you'll find everything. The bills, the deeds, the truth. Don't run from it. Sit with it. Learn who you come from. Plant something out front. Not because I asked, but because you need to see how slow things can heal if you let them. And if this story finds its way to strangers, tell them to like, share, and comment, not for fame, but for faith that people can still change. He held the letter to his chest and closed his eyes. Outside, a car passed. Gospel music faint through the window. He whispered, "I'm sorry, Mama." And somewhere, maybe she heard. The funeral wasn't grand, but it was full. The church hall overflowed with neighbors carrying casseroles, flowers, and old stories. Kids from the block handed out programs printed on soft blue paper with her photo. The one from her church badge, smile bright, eyes steady. Miss Hattie led the singing. Carla read a psalm in a voice that trembled but never broke. Leo spoke last, his gray suit a little too big. "She filed her own justice," he said. "Didn't wait for permission. The law listened because she made it impossible not to, and she forgave, even when the world said she didn't have to." When the service ended, the crowd lingered. Someone played a blues record on an old speaker. The music rolled out onto the street, mingling with the smell of peach cobbler and fried chicken. Hattie wiped her eyes and said, "She got her balance after all." That night, Aaron sat on the porch long after everyone left. The armchair stayed where it was, inside the open door, facing the street. On the table beside it lay the red notebook. He'd read every page that afternoon, every receipt, every note, every line she wrote in those steady hands. It wasn't just evidence, it was her life. A woman's archive of every time she'd chosen grace over bitterness. He opened to the last entry and read aloud, "Love is a ledger, too. You owe it to yourself to balance it before you go." He smiled through tears. Then he stood, walked into the yard, and began digging a small hole near the fence. The soil was dry but giving. By morning, he'd planted a young fig sapling, the same kind that had shaded her porch for years. He watered it with the rest of his bottled water, then sat back to watch the sun climb. Neighbors noticed. Soon, Carla brought clippings. Hattie added marigolds. The block seemed to breathe new air, and every dawn a box of donuts appeared on Lena's table inside the church hall for whoever opened first. Glazed, warm, no note. Just like before. Weeks turned into months. The video of Lena's embassy statement kept circling online. News outlets replayed it. Community groups shared it. Pastors quoted her. Some called it the quiet revolution of Mrs. Brooks. Others just called it the reminder. Aaron never corrected them. He just kept the porch light on. Every evening he'd sit in her chair, the red notebook open, the scarf draped over the armrest. Sometimes he read her notes aloud, his voice low, steady, a rhythm between guilt and gratitude. Other times, he simply listened to the hum of the neighborhood she loved. He didn't speak much anymore, but the children said he smiled easy. Carla once saw him write something new on the final page of the notebook. A single line, careful and even. She died balanced. I'm still learning how. The camera that had once caught her dignity in an embassy room would have loved this ending. No spectacle, just a man, a tree, and a porch light that never went dark. And if you're listening, wherever you are, remember what she said. Balance your life before someone else writes your ledger. Call your mother. Forgive where you can. And if this story reached you, like, share, subscribe, so another heart can find its way back home.